your voice. My name's Bonnie.
And I'm Caroline.
I'm Kathy.
And I'm Colette.
I don't think there's anyone out there that has not been affected by cancer in some way. Did you know that in Canada, cancer is the leading cause of death? Breast cancer, specifically for Canadian women, is the second leading cause of death. Although the statistics aren't out yet from the Canadian Cancer Society, it is estimated that last year in 2023, 30,000 new cases of breast cancer would occur. 1 in 8 Canadian women will get breast cancer over their lifetime. These are staggering statistics. Cancer does affect everyone. Well, today on the show, we are inviting a lifetime friend of mine, Kim, to share her story of breast cancer. Kim and I have known each other for a lifetime. Here's a picture of us. I'm the one laying down on the couch, and my mom is holding Kim. Other than my parents or close family members, Kim has known me the longest. So we've shared through many trials, many victories, good times and bad. And this is her story of walking through breast cancer in the last few years. It is with great joy and anticipation that we welcome Kim to tell her story on Recovering Your Voice.
I want to thank you, ladies, for inviting me to tell my story and share that on Recovering Your Voice. It's a real privilege and an honor to be able to do that. And I think I felt very strongly, very early in this walk and this journey that this was something that I needed to be open and transparent about. I knew that I had friends on Facebook, and I had made a point of actually not friending a lot of my staff and coworkers during my work career because I felt that I needed to keep professional lines because I was a manager. But when I left my place of work, I wanted to friend everybody and keep in touch. And because the timeline was so quick after my retirement, I felt it was important that I not hide in a hole. I think I really feel that often when we go through a time of difficulty or stress or challenges or valley, whatever you want to call it, we can either hide in a cave and try to deal with it on our own, or we can reach out to the Lord, but also to the body and to the community around us, because I think God created us that way, and we really are a village and need a village around us. And I really, really found that through this journey. And I'm going to try and rein in my emotions. So if I go back to the beginning of my story, I actually think I need to start, for me, it started in 2019, which was not the cancer journey, but it was the beginning of a health journey. I always felt that I was very healthy. Certainly tried to be. My one daughter used to always say to me, if anybody tries to be healthy, Mom, it's you. You're always doing what you think is best. But I was immersed in my work, and I was working hard and exhausting myself, and but healthy, or so I thought. And I work with seniors. I worked in a long-term care home and managed a rehab department, and always said that I wanted to age well because I believe that that's possible, and that we don't have to absolutely, be miserable in our senior years and live unhealthy lives. So I vowed that I was going to live long and live healthy. So when I started having some trouble, it was actually very subtle. I started having some hearing issues in the spring of 2019, and felt that I just had water in my ear. And then I thought I had wax in my ear and got that checked out. No, neither of those things were there. And then I thought I had a crushed eustachian tube, and there was all kinds of things that ultimately it took 2 years to get a diagnosis And during those 2 years, I just struggled more and more at my place of work. I was getting more dizzy. I was getting more fatigued. My own voice started to become a problem. It would echo in my head. And then that echoing and vibrating in my head would increase dizziness to the point that I fell off a chair when I was chairing a meeting. Because the more I talked, because, I like to talk. When you chair a meeting, I have the floor. The more I talked, the dizzier I got, and I fell off the chair, and all my staff came running, offering me a drink. It must be blood sugar, blah, blah, blah. Got to the point where, by this point now, we're into 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020. Pandemic hit. So this wasn't the time to jump ship. This was the time when all hands needed to be on deck and families weren't allowed into long-term care. So we were feeding people and caring for people because families couldn't be there. So it was long days and was not the time to quit, but I was struggling more and more. I guess it was November of 2019. I finally said to my boss, I can't do this. I don't know if I can continue. And what they proposed was that I go part-time, which was a gift. It was unheard of for a manager to be able to go part-time. I thought it was a gift. I have different views on that. So I worked part-time. I did a lot of work from home, but putting on headphones and speakers just, amplified the sound, and extra movement, extra sound, all of that just caused more dizziness and more issues. So I went for a while with that. I finally got a diagnosis that I had a hole in my superior semicircular canal in my ear, which is important to your vestibular system, probably there from birth and got bigger and needed to be repaired. Saw a specialist. There's a lot of story around that, but was waiting for a surgical date. But pandemic, I was supposed to have surgery at Sunnybrook, and they had a COVID ICU, or not the ICU, it was probably step down, but they had set up a campus on the parking lot at Sunnybrook. So you knew that it wasn't going to be very quick getting in there. But I waited. I finally gave a date for retirement, October 21st, 2021. And ironically, I got the call for my surgery October 21st, 2021. I thought, oh Lord, okay, like what's up with that? I don't even get a few days of rest before I go onto the table. Like, what's up with that? And I remember saying to my boss, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be playing hooky on my last day. So anyway, I went into that. I had the surgery, found a bigger hole. I went under a second time, had surgery again, came home and was recovering from that. So that was October 2021. So I was told the best thing to do to sort of train my brain vestibular, because now I had an obliterated canal, was to walk. So I had been walking before because I was trying to lose weight before my surgery with no success. And started doing a lot of walking and was just feeling like maybe I was getting on my feet. And 3 months later, into February, I went for a mammogram because I had missed my 2019 one. My last one had been 2017. And I will say, I was opposed. I was a rebel. I was opposed to mammograms, at least having them as regular as was being recommended. Because I worked in the medical field, I did a lot of reading. I had concerns about the squash pancake that went into that machine, the radiation, didn't feel it. I didn't have any risk factors, no family history. I thought sometimes, and there was literature to support that sometimes you cause more harm than good and false positives. And oh, okay, I will pacify and go for that first one. And I even said to my nurse practitioner at the time that I will not go as regular as you think I should. So when I was due the end of 2019, I kind of just put it on the back burner for a bit. And then of course you got into pandemic. So when I was due in 2022, I got another notice about it. I thought, okay, I'll go for this. So I went in February. And it was only a couple of days after I actually had the mammogram that I felt a lump after my mammogram, and had reached up and felt something under my arm, and oh my gosh, why didn't I feel that before? And it was really tender. And I will say, leading up to that, since 2019 and increasing through 2020, 2021, I was having a lot of shoulder pain. And some hip pain, and there were a lot of other little things going on, but I attributed it to all the computer work and repetitive strain. And I had been seeing a physio, and I had been seeing a physio for my balance. So I was going regularly to that, and she moved from dealing with balance to also working on my shoulder. Did think it was odd that it wasn't really improving. I started going to some aqua size, and I was having a lot of difficulty lifting that arm. But I just kept associating that with work injury kind of thing. But all of a sudden I'm feeling this lump, and I thought, well, it's really funny. The physio didn't feel that. I'd been going to massage therapy, like you name it. I was doing it all. But when I found it, I'm lying there in my bed thinking, okay, I'm not going to jump and call anybody because I just had a mammogram. If there's something there, I'm going to get a call. And I knew in my heart, God gives you a knower. I knew in my heart that I was getting that call back. I hoped in my heart that it was going to be nothing serious, but somehow I knew early on. So, yep, I got the call. I was going to go for an ultrasound. So fine, I was sitting there for the ultrasound, and I didn't even say anything to the tech about what I had found, because I knew that they'd see something, and sure, that's right where the probe goes. And so then you wait for that call back for those results. And I received a call from my family doctor, which again is a miracle. If I say that, God prepares you. And sometimes you need that reflection back to realize that God's been in your corner all along when we don't think he's been there. But I did not have a family doctor until early 2019, just before all this stuff happened. And I went to the doc that I worked with, and I said to him, I have nothing against nurse practitioners, but I felt like I was getting older. And sometimes, you need a nurse practitioner to refer you to a doctor to get to the specialist, and it just slows down the process. I know the medical system, and I wanted to have a direct line to a doc. Thank you very much. And was there any way I could get into a doc? And he assisted me with that, and he got me into a family doctor, brand new grad, sweet as pie, lovely woman who has been in my court right from the early stages. And she's been my sort of my center of the healthcare system. And I think you need somebody in your court, because you start juggling a lot of specialists, right? And she gave me a call and said that she had got the ultrasound report. She was always very, very quick, and still continues that. She is the first one on the phone to call me on a weekend in an evening, because she does not want me to stew and stress over things. So she called to let me know that the scan was concerning, and that I would be going for a biopsy. Okay, so that stirs up some other emotions. And what is the primary emotion that comes up? It's fear, right? Fear rises up. And the one verse I always had memorized really early on was that the Lord does not give us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and soundness of mind. Okay, this is not of you, but I can tell you that it's not a once and done thing. All through the journey, and still today, it rises up, you squish it down, and you got to kick it under your feet, because we're walking on this earth, and it's a common emotion that comes up. So it did that day. Didn't know what to do with this. You tell yourself that it'll be nothing, it'll be benign, and that's your hope, and that's your prayer. So I know, Bonnie, I contacted you very early in this and let you know what was going on, because I needed some support around me. And Bonnie, bless her heart, came with me. No, you didn't come with me for the biopsy itself. I went in for that biopsy, which was a interesting experience, I will say that. And scary experience, and kind of put it behind me. And I was to come back, I believe, in 2 weeks' time, and I would get the results. And I was out for a walk, and I got the call to come in for my follow-up report. And I was actually excited because they called me to come in a week early. And I'm thinking, oh, yay, I don't have to wait as long. And then I told two of my friends, and they weren't so, oh, yay. Oh, you got called early. Don't go in alone. And I'm thinking, no, this is great. I'll know early. I'll put it behind me. I'll move on with life. I was so naive. And so my friends insisted that I not go in to that appointment alone. And if I would encourage women, I would say that do not go into these appointments alone. You don't know what you're going to hear. And you know, when you're not given necessarily good news, you kind of shut down. It's kind of strange. You kind of go into freeze mode. You don't hear everything. You don't necessarily process everything well. You draw blank. You can't think of the questions you need to ask. You think of that later. You might need to cry. You might, you need somebody to be the extra ears to ask those questions and to help you through that. So I took my girlfriend with me. Precious Bonnie, you'll hear her name coming up a lot through this. And she came with me that day. And she'll remember as well as I. So sometimes you start to doubt what you heard, and I've had to go back to her. Did I really hear this? Is that what was said? Because you do start to play things over in your head. And I was sitting there on the bed, and you've disrobed and you've got your gown on, and you get really used to stripping down. That started the day of the mammogram. And she walked in the door, she opened the door and said, yes, it's cancer. Like that was the first thing out of her mouth. And I don't even know what came out of that, but something. But the first thing out of her mouth was, yes, it's cancer. And sits down, and you're already starting to shake. And I know through that conversation, I was told it was small and it was picked up early, and I wouldn't have felt it. And it was a good thing that I came in for the mammogram. And so it was stage 1, and we'll take it out with surgery, and then we'll have radiation, and you'll be right as rain. And we had booked a trip to Scotland and the British Isles for late August. So I was looking forward to that. Will I be able to do that? Yeah, you should be done your radiation by then. And then I was asking about the one under my arm, and she was pointing to a picture on the wall, and yeah, that's high breast tissue and benign, and don't worry about that. We'll take that out at the same time. And okay, so I had a plan. I was still anxious, but okay, I had a plan, I had a goal, I had a timeline. It was managed it right. Get all my ducks in my a row. I want facts. I want facts. But I will say too, when I first had my mammogram and my ultrasound, and I was told it was cancer, my first place I went was to my two girls. I went straight to both girls' houses and sat down with them and wanted them to know. So again, I guess I'm not one of these people that kind of hides the diagnosis and protects my kids. Maybe that's wrong, but I didn't protect them very well. I went straight to them. I wanted them to know, because I had gone into this with, I don't have any risk factors. I don't have a family history. I since don't think that's true. I did have some risk factors, but I went to my girls and I told them, okay, you are going to do breast exams. You are going to go for those mammograms when they tell you to. And I wanted them to know that. I said, you now have a family history. And you know what? I think it was right on that visit that I said to them, I'm going to go through this and I'm going to do it for you. And I'm going to do it with God because you are not going to go through this. I'm going to do this for the gang. Going to break this thing. You are not walking this road. And so I really believed that at the time. I didn't really know what that road was going to be. So I was going to have the surgery, had to be within the next 4 weeks. They want to do that really promptly. And I had already booked a trip to Abbotsford. A pandemic had hit. My oldest son was living out in BC, and I had booked a trip to go visit him. I had postponed it once already because I was leaving when they booked that biopsy. So I had rebooked it once already so that I would be present for the biopsy and that follow-up appointment because they had insisted that I needed to do that in person. I couldn't get that information over the phone. So I did that. And here I had rebooked it and was going again. And now they're talking about surgery. So I remember talking to my family doctor and she said, okay, you've got 1 month, get the heck out of Dodge, go to Abbotsford. And then so I remember saying that to the surgeon, okay, after Easter, I'm gone. Let me do this because it had been 9 months since I'd seen my son. And when he moved out there, I never anticipated that it would be that long between visits. I thought 3 months most, 9 months had come and gone. So I was out there and let me backtrack just to think, because I was just thinking, so I went through everything with them and told them what was going to be coming up with my son and his wife and family. And so if there was a risk factor, I had started with hormone replacement therapy because I was not doing well with menopause. So I was taking hormone replacement therapy. And that was the one thing the surgeon said to me immediately, why the heck are you still taking this? As soon as you had that lump on the mammogram, you should have stopped that. Well, I didn't connect the dots and I should have. And so that day I saw her was the day I stopped hormone replacement. And I will say, I'll be really honest here. I had started having a glass of wine far too frequent. Work had become very stressful. It had become all consuming, all exhausting. I was not sleeping well. So I had got into a habit of having a glass every night and sometimes two. And I would relax. It would help me fall asleep. In hindsight, I know all of those things. Now I have a smartwatch that tells me, oh my gosh, right at the start, I noticed what it did for your sleep. Like it wasn't good. You thought you were sleeping. No, you weren't. Not a good habit. But I since read, that combination of a glass of wine and hormone replacement, that's not a nice mix. I wish someone had told me that. I'm in the medical field. I did not know that. I wish I had known that. So you go through a period of beating yourself up. What did I do to myself? I did this. And the specialist would say, no, 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 no. It can come spontaneously to anybody, can happen to anybody. But I sure went through a time where I did this. I'm at fault. What did I do? Because when you go through a journey like this, it's not just you. You've affected your family. They're going through this journey. Your friends are going through this journey. What did I do to them? Let's go back to Abbotsford. So I had my stint there and I came back and was waiting. I had not, the whole time I was there, I was waiting for the date, waiting for the date, waiting for the date for that surgery. I knew it was supposed to be within 4 weeks and I was coming back basically at the 4-week mark. And I got home and I got that call and I think I was to be in a couple of days after that. They had told you that you needed 2 weeks of quarantine before and COVID testing and all of that, but I wasn't even given enough time. I was supposed to quarantine right then. I will say that was the same day I got called that my new car I'd waited 6 months for had come in because I wanted a granny van so that I could haul all my grandkids to the beach that summer. Those were my summer plans. I was newly retired, right? I was going to take my grandkids to the beach. So I had a Nana van. And So I went with a mask and I picked up that car. I was not coordinated. I'm gonna get my car first, then I'll isolate. So I did that, went in for my surgery. Days before that was a lot of tests. So this is the beginning of tests and appointments and tests and appointments. And it gets, your life is consumed with appointments and tests. And CT scan, body scan, echocardiogram. I probably am getting this in all the wrong order, but I don't want to sit here and just go through my journal. But there was a lot of testing, blood work. Beforehand, the day of the surgery, you went in and I had, I know I had a SPECT scan. I had a CT scan where they injected the dye to put a marker around where the cancer was in the breast because it was very small and hard to find. So they wanted to be sure they got it when they were in there surgically. I remember asking again about the one under my arm. Why aren't you marking that? Oh, that's big and visible, and they'll find that and they'll take it out, and don't worry, that's benign. And okay. And the surgery wasn't till that afternoon. And I remember the SPECT scan, I'd never had one of those before. You're basically tied to the table because you can't move a muscle or twitch. But the woman was very proficient and skilled and professional and just strapped me in and said, I'll be in the next room. And off she took. Well, she didn't warn me what this might be. And that thing comes down to like within an inch of your nose. And oh my gosh, I just kept thinking, please don't squash me. Please don't squash me. Because it's this massive machine. I thought my head was going to be crushed. And just a little bit of prep would have been, would have really eased some anxiety. So you're just, me, all I know is I have a song in my head. I have prayers that I whisper. That's the only way to bring down anxiety for me, is to speak to the Lord silently. It doesn't have to be audible, but that's what I was doing the whole time I was on that table in between. Please don't squash me. And then the surgery, you wake up, that was a 2:00 surgery. I came out around 4 that afternoon. I don't know what the delay was, but it was well into the evening, 7:30-ish before I was released. And all I got was, yeah, everything was good. We got everything out. You can go home. And I did ask Bonnie to come. I knew that I had emotions. I needed to be able to have that drive home with someone that I could safely sort of just dump some things, and it was a safe spot. And then I was ready to face the 1,000 questions and everything else from family at home. So Bonnie graciously picked me up that day. So moving on, you're recovering from your surgery. I'm bandaged up, given all my instructions to move my arm well. They had taken out 6 sentinel lymph nodes at the same time to test my lymph for any cancer spread. There's always the risk of lymphedema with that, and swelling in your arm can come up at any time. And to this day, I am grateful. I have not had mild swelling in the morning, no lymphedema to speak of, and I am extremely grateful. I was amazed how this early in the stage, people started to rally that village around me. So I had just posted that I'd gotten this diagnosis, I'd had surgery. The physio that I used to work with, such a dear heart, came out. She lives at the South End. She went home, made dinner for her family, and then came to my place, brought me dinner, wanted to be there the day the bandages had to come off. She wanted to take those bandages off. And she took those bandages off me, checked my stitches, checked my range of motion. And like she was just so tender and loving that day. It was just beautiful. I felt like I looked like I'd been attacked by a bear. Just looked like big claw marks across two great big incisions. Now you can hardly see it, but at the time you look like a bear attack. A lot of swelling and a lot of tenderness, but that was fine. And then you get a post-surgical call to come in, and again that I'm thinking, okay, this is just a follow-up checkup. All good. I think actually, if I have my facts straight, this is the one I got a week early. And I thought, oh, great. I'm feeling good. I did break a few rules. I know that I was to be 6 weeks being very careful with how much I exerted myself and exercised. And I thought I was a rule keeper, but apparently I'm a bit of a rule breaker. Confession is good for the soul. I had decided that I needed a new kayak because I had a big 16-foot kayak, sea kayak with a rudder and all the rest, and I was getting into more hip pain. And I think it was pointed out to me that perhaps doing a little bit less rudder work would be a more comfortable ride for me. And so I had it in my head. I was going to get myself a new kayak, and darn it, I was going to do it before I started any radiation because I was going to paddle. And so my husband and I went down the highway where there was a Swift kayak place. And I was going to try it because it was on the water and you could try out kayaks. This was 2 weeks after my surgery. The weather had turned nice and we went down there and I paddled. Oh, I want to say a good hour and a half. I tried out a lot of boats and picked a boat and bought a boat. And then I went to a garden center and we were driving there and I said, oh, gee, I might have done a little bit much. And how long did they say I was supposed to take it easy? I checked the book when I got back, 6 weeks. But anyway, I came home with my new kayak. So I went for my follow-up check and was just expecting to get my date to follow up with radiation. Again, I took Bonnie with me. Thank the Lord I had her with me. I did not expect what I received that day. And that was that the lump under my arm was in fact cancerous. It was not a benign lump. And it was of significant size. So I was now stage 2, not stage 1. And oh, by the way, it was checked under the microscope and it was very aggressive. So now it was grade 3. So the staging is the size and the grade is how quickly a cancer will grow. And the staging is 1 to 4, sometimes 1 to 5, they'll say. Grading is 0 to 3. 3 is the worst. So I was now stage 2, grade 3. And of the 6 sentinel lobes they had removed, 3 of them had cancer in them. So that changed everything. I just remember making eye contact with Bonnie and it, it was just like, oh, okay. Now what? And so now we're talking chemotherapy, which was the one thing I didn't want to do. And it would come before radiation. And oh, I would have to cancel that trip that I had been longing for, or so she thought. And this is really funny. This is the vanity in me. I think it's funny now. Maybe we're all vain. We're women here, right? Let's be honest. We want to feel young. We want to look pretty. I think that's our society and commercialism. But I had really poor self-esteem for most of my life. I always thought I was really very much an ugly duckling, buck teeth and freckles and scrawny as a kid and teasing. And so I really struggled. So in the days of my youth, when you should feel your best, I really struggled with who I was and feeling like this ugly duckling. And I remember actually, I don't know if I said it out loud, but I certainly thought in my head many times, oh Lord, don't ever make me go through chemo, because I would be the ugliest bald woman. Because some women are just beautiful bald. They're natural beauties, not me. I just thought I have ears that stick out. I got this scrawny face. I got no forehead. I just, I need poof. Anybody knows I need poof on my head to make my head bigger. I'm a pinhead on a bum. So I used to think those things. And now here I am. I'm going to be a bald woman. Oh my gosh. So you struggle with that. So I'm just being honest and transparent here. And she started to tell me just that I would be referred to an oncologist, a chemo oncologist, and to an oncologist that would look after the radiation. So that began that step. More tests, more appointments. I met with the oncologist radiologist that would do the radiation. I'm sure that's not the right name. That was done through Zoom. I took my iPad over to Bonnie's place. So again, I'd have other ears to hear. And he was a lovely man, and bless his heart, because what was on my mind the most was this trip to Scotland. I just wanted to go somewhere. Please tell me it'll be over by then. So I asked him, straight up, can I do the radiation? Do I really have to do the chemo? I hadn't met with that oncologist yet. And he graciously put me on hold and contacted her, called her up and explained the situation, read my reports, my surgical report, my biopsy report to her. And she said right then, oh yes, she'll be going through chemo and she needs to cancel that trip. So at least I got the facts I needed, because I think I had like 2 days left to get my deposit back. So I wanted an answer. So I got that. So I canceled my trip. He also was good. I told him what my background was and that I'd love to see my reports and see my scans. And so he would put it up on the screen and I would quickly take a screenshot so that I could have a photo. And just told me what radiation might look like, but the first thing would be chemo. So sometime along the way, I had an appointment with my oncologist, who would be overseeing the chemotherapy, and went there for the first time through the doors of the cancer center. Didn't think I'd ever be walking through those doors, and almost surreal. So met up with my oncologist, who was lovely. A woman that was nice. Again, I had a female surgeon, I had a female oncologist, just reassuring and lovely, and walked me through my options. She did give me options. She gave me statistics. I got a lot of that over the course of the journey. Well, you have this percentage of survival rate, and this percentage with this choice, and this percentage with that choice, and very factual, matter of fact kind of thing. So I had the option of not doing anything, and my survival rate would be maybe 50% in 5 to 10 years. And then I had the option of just radiation. I had the option of a course of chemo that would not result in hair loss, that would not result in nausea and vomiting, was very mild on side effects. And I didn't go back through my notes from her, but it was either a 4 or 6 week journey. It was an easier course and something like an 80% survival rate. And then the last one was the most aggressive treatment plan. It was the one that she recommended, would give you a 90% survival rate for the next 10 years. I do remember at some point saying to her, I don't want 5 years. I don't want 10 years. I want 30 years. I want to see my grandchildren have children. That's what I want. And I know I've repeatedly said that to God. I want to do that well, mind you. I don't want to be sick 30 years, but I don't think it's wrong to speak out what your heart's desire is. My heart's desire is to be here 30 years from now and to see my grandchildren have children and to do that well. So I was having trouble with these statistics because they give you a timeline, which to me wasn't long enough. And she kept telling me I was young. I would say that again, because I turned 60 and I thought, okay, I'm entering my senior years. And no, you're young, or we wouldn't be proposing this aggressive form. If you were 10 years older, we wouldn't put you through this, but you're strong, you're healthy, you're young. And I had time to decide. So I did go home and I talked to all of my kids. I told my husband what my choices were. I sat out in the sunroom, my happy place, and I talked to all four of my kids. And two of them said, Mom, whatever you decide, we're behind you. It's your decision, whatever you decide. And two of them said to take that easier route. Mom, chemo's okay, but why don't you take that one that's a little bit easier? But I think I knew right sitting in her office that I needed to go the hard road. Again, that knowing in your knower. And yeah, I'd love to take the easy route, but that isn't always the right choice. And maybe it is for someone else, but for me, I think I knew. And even talking to nobody was going to make that decision for me. It had to be my decision. I finally decided, okay, I need to do this. I need to fight it to the best of my ability. Yes, I believe in miracles. I'm still looking for my miracle. But I really felt I needed to go through this. And I knew that I wouldn't be doing it alone. So called all the kids back, told them all what I decided. And my oldest, he was so funny. He said, I wanted you to pick the easy one, but I knew you'd pick the hard one because you're brave and you're stubborn, just the Irish side of you. And he blamed that side of the family. You're brave and you're stubborn. And I know you can do this. So I was scheduled to start June the 6th. And that date actually came up very quickly. I did a lot of reading about what the drugs would be doing. It was an FEC course, FEC-D. So there would be 6 treatments over 18 weeks. The first 3 treatments would be this FEC drug combo, 3 different drugs. And then the last one was this D. And anything I read, it was the D that was going to be the challenging one. But came with all your side effects they tell you about. And the first being hair loss. I was shocked how quickly that happens. I was advised, I don't know where it came from, but I was advised to go in and look for a wig and to do, if that's the route you were going to do that while you still had your hair, not be trying to figure that out afterwards. So I decided I was going to do that. So on June the 4th, 2 days before I started my chemo, I took my one daughter with me because of pandemic, there were a couple of places I could go, but one wouldn't let you take anybody with you. Imagine that. This was a really emotional thing for me to go in and know that I was going to lose my hair and get a wig. I needed to purchase a wig. It wasn't, for dress up time. And it wasn't a time to be different. I really wanted to be the same. And I wanted somebody with me, but you could only take one. So I have 2 daughters. Imagine, who are you going to take with you without causing offense? But I did take my oldest daughter with me and promised the other that I would dial in and get her on the iPad. Walked in a room full of wigs and spotted one right off the bat and took that and took another one into this back room. And the woman spent quite a bit of time talking first and prepping. and then got right into plunked the one on my head. And it was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe how it was like the same color, the same style. It looked like me. And I can't tell you what a relief that was. It was bizarre. And it was like a load came off. Okay. Oh my gosh, that's fake hair on my head and I still look like myself. All right. And then, oh my gosh, I didn't call my other daughter. So I quickly dialed up and she said, you forgot me. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We were talking. And she said, okay, you can start any time now. And I said, but I'm wearing one. She couldn't tell. She couldn't tell. And it was like validation. Oh my goodness. So we did go through a bunch of others and we had a few good laughs because, I mean, they can be funny looking. But I walked out that day and I didn't even ask when I was trying it on the price because at that point, I just needed what I needed to be able to get through this. And I found out later that I could get one covered through insurance. So let's make this a good one, right? So got a script and I did get that one covered. I did learn pretty early in the journey that you need to be careful of the oven because a synthetic wig can singe. And I like to bake and cook. And every time I open that oven door, you really needed to remove your hair. Well, yeah. So I singed my bangs a few times. So they got shorter and shorter. So what looked lovely at the start didn't, it looks not so nice now. Anyway, it became a joke at home where I would just say, save the wig. And everybody would come running to open the oven door for me so that I didn't have to. But that was after I caused some damage. Anyway, side trip. So that was June the 4th, June the 6th, I went in and started my chemo. And again, bless your heart, Bonnie. Bonnie came with me that day. My husband's working from home, but Bonnie came with me and she's been a rock at my side. And they would only let somebody be with you for that very first visit. I was 3/4 of the way through this and I was seeing other people with them and assuming all of them, well, first visit or there's some exception, and found out that they had lifted that. And I could have had somebody with me through this whole thing. But I did all the rest of it on my own. But Bonnie gave me a love package to go in there. And it contained word searches, some coloring, doodling things, a devotional book, stickers, rainbow smile stickers to put on my IV pole to remember and think this is not poison going in me, because our mind is such a battlefield. No, this is medicine, and God's going to use that medicine to heal my body. And at this point, somewhere around close to when I was starting this journey, you blessed ladies as a team said, let's rally. And a prayer group, army of people took me under their wing and carried me through the whole remainder of that year. And I believe still do to this day. If I called out, you guys are there. And not just the others rose up. So I ended up having people through connections. My boss's mother was a believer and she was out in the East Coast and I'd never met this woman, but he told her and she was praying for me and his wife and my daughter-in-law's family, they're in Holland and they're praying for me. And I was doing missions work in Cuba and I had all these Cuban people praying for me. And they were a part of an email link. So all I had to say was, I need prayer for this, or I'm going in for my chemo today. And Bonnie had given me a book to read something about the journey of joy, but it was a breast cancer survivor's story, and it was all about finding the joy through the journey. And I can tell you, she had a hellish journey. You have to look for that joy. But I was reading that, and one of the things that she had in there was about the zero prayer. So I started asking for the zero prayer: zero cancer, zero nausea, zero vomiting, zero skin peeling, zero nails falling off. I tell you that. Zero pain, zero fatigue, and listing all the side, zero damage to, I was worried about my organs, zero damage to heart, to liver, to kidneys, to lungs, to brain function. Like, you look at those side effects, they're scary. And so I had an army of people that would pray my zero prayer for me, so I could go in with confidence, yes, with some fear and trepidation, but with some confidence. And so that started my journey.
We want to thank you for your vulnerability and your willingness to share this difficult story with us. To our audience, this is only part one of Kim's story. Stay tuned for our next episode release, when Kim will share the remainder of her story. And if you have questions for Kim, if you want more information, please see our description below, where we've put in some resources, but you can also write us at recoveringyourvoice@gmail.com. But till next time, please keep sharing your story. Oop,
Can't hear you.
you disappeared all of a sudden.
I removed all my paint shirts that were hanging off the door, but I just lost my train of thought there for a minute. Oh,
It is with a great desire.
I have a really high stool, so I have to be supported or I'm in trouble.
We don't want you falling off.
No. Whoops, nearly. My arm missed my armrest. You can bleep that part out.